try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living.
It is 2:00. It is Thursday. It is Volunteers for Israel Educates. Today is episode 212. Congratulations. We made it. Also, I think tomorrow's a holiday, like Groundhog Day or something like that. If anybody remembers what it is, congratulations. I guess that's going to happen also. We have a unique program today, thanks to the initiative of Queen Pamela and Princess Julia. And they have put together an interesting assortment of things we're going to learn about. But before we get there, I have a couple of brief announcements. The first is this is being recorded. It will be up on YouTube in a day or two, as is 211 other episodes waiting for you to watch. By the way, some of the YouTube videos have received hundreds of views since they've been placed up there. Second is that this is also captioned enabled. So if you need to, or you want to watch captioning as people speak, just click on that little button at the bottom. It says hide caption or just captions, and you'll see the text come up, which some people find convenient. Announcement has to do with the ongoing question of VFI versus SARL. And let me just bring you up to speed on, for those who might not be aware of what's happening. For about 40 years, VFI operated as a recruiting arm, essentially for SARL. SARL decided about a month or two ago that they wanted to basically do their own in-house recruiting, and therefore took that mission internally and took it away from VFI. So now if people want to volunteer with the IDF in the traditional way we've been doing forever, they have to go directly to SARL, and to do that you go to the SARL website. VFI is maintaining VFI Educates, that's why we're here now, and that'll be maintained going forward. But also VFI has instituted a study group which is looking at a number of very interesting opportunities for volunteer service in Israel outside of the IDF. Among those that are in discussion, if you happen to be interested in biological things, then there is, or plants, there is a organization in Jerusalem, I think, where they specialize in these things, and they have a big, I don't know what you call it, like a museum. Anyhow, we're looking at the things like that to activate as a volunteer opportunity, which might be of interest to some assortment of people. Of course, archaeology, which we've been doing for years now, will be also another opportunity. In this case, we seem to have a number of archaeological sites available to us, and we're busy exploring that. So those are just two. There's about 10 more that we're investigating, and hopefully springtime, late spring, having to do with when the war should happen to end, we might be able to start initiating these kinds of things. And so the committee is moving forward. If anybody has any specific idea on a particular thing they'd be interested in doing, be it fire emergency work, or working in a hospital or a nursing home, or doing whatever thing you might find interesting and exciting, let us know. Let me know particularly, and we'll put it on the agenda and have our folks investigate the possibility for setting up a formal volunteer program. So with that, I'm now going to turn the mic over to Miss Pamela to carry forth. And thanks for taking the initiative today, Pam and Julia, for our program.
Well, Julia actually pushed me because I had told Steve about this idea, and I don't know how Julia then, she must have read my mind or something, because I told Steve about this idea, I don't know, several weeks ago, and I said, okay, I'll get people, and I just, the days went by and I didn't do it. And then 2 days ago, Julia said to me, how about if we have our Zoom on Thursday, where I think you did this on Monday, Julia. So she said, how about if we have our Zoom on Thursday, right, where volunteers, talk about the experiences they've been having here in Israel. And I said, great idea. And that's when I send out this letter to everybody. And I said, let me know by the next day, which was Tuesday. And Steve and Alana put it together. And so that's what we're doing. So the reason for this, what I wanted to do was to show all the other people who have not been here recently that there are a lot of other things that you can do in Israel at this time, in addition to working on the army bases. So the people who are going to talk today have been working on army bases on their trips here, and then most of them have stayed after several days, a week, a couple weeks, a month, 3 months, and stayed after just to continue helping in Israel in various places, various volunteer places. So I thought it would be nice if each one of them would just give a short recap of what they've been doing, and just explain it to everybody. So I think I'd like to start with let's see, Ona, because since Ona just got over COVID, she's very tired and it's late here in Israel already. So we'll start with Ona and Steve, who made Aliyah a few years ago and spent half the year here and half the year back in the States. So, and Ona has been doing a lot and Steve has been doing a lot. They both have been doing a lot. So we'll let you talk. And everybody, if you would just keep your little descriptions of what you've been doing to, maybe like 5 minutes or so, a couple minutes, 5 minutes, and then we'll have room for we'll have time for anybody. If you have any pictures, Steve has provided a way for you to share them. Okay, Ona and Steve.
He says I should do it. He's not going to. I think I have a similar story to other people. I've been working in Sarel since 2006. And this time when we came back, I wanted to broaden the horizon of what volunteer possibilities there were. So I've been, I worked in two different places at Chabad Pankino, which is where we fixed meals for soldiers going both north and south. And basically we worked together there, and basically it was chopping vegetables so that it could go on then to the cooks to prepare the meals, which were delivered the same day. Chabad had offered the space, so we were working in under a covering in the Chabad house up on King George. The other thing was working in the Hamal 86, Ben Yehuda, and packing boxes of various equipment and goods for soldiers going north and south. Initially, I think also for some families, but then that became more for soldiers. And we were packing warm gear especially as the time got colder. We packed gear, we packed knee pads, we packed Hamsaver, the throat protection, all different sorts of goods, personal items, shampoos and toothpastes and that sort of thing. And we were working in the bottom of the synagogue on 86 Ben Yehuda. So I think one of the most important things I can say about what does volunteering do for you, what comes out of volunteering, and people find it, I think the most important thing I can think of to say is it really establishes and heightens a sense of community among the whole Jewish community, probably nationally and maybe internationally as well, because we talk about it, we send news about it, we go, we mention it to other people, we probably put it on Facebook, what we're doing. It's just a dissemination of good news that can come out of something very terrible, but of people joining together and making a very powerful sense of community. And it also, the second thing I would list that it does out of just, we think what we do is small, all I'm doing is packing boxes, or all I'm doing is taking the label off of one medicine or something. We think it's small, but in fact, each small thing grows into something, some unique way. And it makes us say, what can I do? What can I possibly do to enter more in this community? So that's about it. I work chopping vegetables and packing boxes. Very, very rewarding work.
Well, thank you, thank you. And Ona comes every single morning, and she's there promptly at 9 in the morning. And I have to say that the first time they went and chopped the vegetables, she came back to us afterwards. Steve then went on someplace else doing something else. And Ona said to me, Steve loves chopping. And I'll never forget, she said, Steve really loves chopping. So that was the beginning of their chopping.
Yeah, Steve went on to another place, to J17, which is a vegan restaurant. And he also worked at Expo, which was a huge, huge gathering of goods and people to pack boxes for not just soldiers, but for family as well. So between us, I guess we've done 4 different types.
Right. Well, thank you. And Ona mentioned Ben Yehuda 86. For those of you who don't know, it's a place in Ben Yehuda. We work out of the bottom of the synagogue, and we call it Hamal 86. Hamal Ben Yehuda 86. Hamal means war room. So we use it as a distribution center, warehouse distribution center, and we're there every single day from 9 in the morning. We started out the first couple of weeks, we were there from 8 in the morning till 11 at night. And then the 2 other people and I who started it, we said, well, we can't, work that many hours. So now we just work from 9 till about 6 every day. So we really, really look forward to and depend on our volunteers who come. And I have to say that most of the volunteers who are there are because of VFI and the volunteers that come on the Army bases. And when they hear about us, they come and they, as I said, they work on weekend, on Fridays, Thursday afternoons, or they stay after the program. How about, okay, thank you, Ona and Steve. And whenever you're tired, you can just sign off. Andy and Rodney, because they are sitting at the Maxim Hotel right now. You guys want to talk? Do you see them, Steve? You're muted, Andy. Andy, you're muted.
Andy. Here's Andy. Let me spotlight him.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, can you hear?
Yes, thank you.
Hey, great. Hello, everyone. It is in the evening in Tel Aviv. I'm Andy Dorr, Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. Hello, Steve, my neighbor in Newtown Square. Okay, Pamela asked me to speak. I've been here a little bit under 3 months, and I did start the program with 3 weeks SRL. I started going through with Bev Cohen, who I've known for many years. I've been doing SRL for 18 years. And Bev was very helpful in coordinating everything with SRL, but there were some bumps because of some new leadership in SRL. But the first week I was at Matzrop doing medical supplies, which many of us have done many times. And everything went pretty smoothly there. Then went for 2 weeks to Hatzarim, which some people know is an Air Force base, but next to it they do other things. The fuel comes out of there, and for 2 weeks we were packaging food packages and also power bars for the soldiers. Then after that, well, let me just stay on that for a minute. We were housed those 2 weeks in a Bedouin village, which was about an hour away. And the reason is there is no housing on the basis for many of the volunteers because the reserve soldiers are there. Motzrop is an exception. But when you're going back and forth on a bus, and they were busing people from Jerusalem and other places that had housing, not on bases, but in other accommodations. But people were spending a lot of time on the buses. The Bedouin village was wonderful. It was like a resort. We had beds that were made. We got fresh towels every day, and the food was wonderful. But the bus ride started getting pretty tiring, an hour or more back and forth every day. So after the 3 weeks with Sorel, even though I wanted to go further, I was told because of the demand of other volunteers coming, they probably would not be able to get me back in until January. That never happened because they never responded to any of my inquiries. So I had to do other things. And I can tell you, there are many opportunities here in Tel Aviv and in Israel to do other volunteer work. And if you expect to have these opportunities just jump out of you, at you, it will not happen. I found out most of them from word of mouth, from other volunteers that I met either in Sorel or through Pamela. And as you heard Ona speak, I was also at the Chabad chopping vegetables with Ona and Steve. And, I told them about other things. So did vegetables at Chabad for a couple weeks. And then I started doing a lot of farming. And there are numerous organizations that are running bus trips every day down to the south to farmers that desperately need volunteers even today. That is where the main emphasis is now on farming. I also did things like J17, which was a vegan restaurant in North Tel Aviv. When I started, we were preparing 2,000 meals a day that would go down to soldiers, mostly in Gaza. And we had drivers. We would prepare the food in the morning, and then the drivers would take the orders to different bases. That has dropped down to probably about 100 a day. And I attribute that mostly to a lot of the reserves leaving the Gaza area. So the demand for the vegan food has decreased tremendously. We are not allowed to do the food for the North, even though there's so many soldiers up there, because it's very difficult to get the food delivered to them. The roads are closed in the North, so our volunteers from J17 cannot get up there. Also, J17 has opportunities for people that want to work in their food truck. And the food truck goes down to bases. It leaves J17 around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, doesn't get back till 10 o'clock at night. So it's a very, very long day, but they use volunteers for that. Also, as Ona said, Hamal 86, we do great work there. Pam and the other volunteers, and there are numerous Sorel people that come and join us to help. And it's wonderful work. The people here in Israel are so appreciative of everything you do, whether it's store owners, restaurant owners. Everything you do is highly appreciated. And as I said, really through word of mouth, and also WhatsApp is great. If you have FaceTime, these are all areas that opportunities come every single day. Plenty of opportunities to volunteer. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Rodney now, who's sitting right next to me. Okay.
Thank you, Andy. And as Andy said, he's been here for 3 months, and I'm really going to miss him because he's there every day helping us. So, okay, Rodney from California. who has been doing Sarel for many, many, many years with Wes Walker through the years. So go on, Rodney.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm from San Diego, California, and I first volunteered with Sorrel in 92. Been on 13, 14 programs. So always me, I could call.
Is anyone else having trouble with the sound?
Yeah,
Yeah, they may want to mute their video to improve the sound.
Yeah, but it was fine when the camera was faced the other way. We could hear.
turn the camera a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
sorry, we just can't hear anything what you're saying. Hear every other syllable.
Try it again. Rodney.
Yeah, hi. As I was saying, I'm from San Diego, California, and first volunteered with Sorrel in 1992, and have been on a dozen or more programs. And typically, I've done everything from kitchen duty to loading munitions in armored personnel carriers, everything in between. And have enjoyed all of it, all very rewarding. And typically, I would take my 2 or 3 days off and go on walking tours, rent a car, visit museums and different sites. And I planned all this before I left. But this trip was very different for me. I called Pam because I heard about her war room before I left. And I said, Pam, I just don't feel like tramping around Tel Aviv and Jerusalem like I usually do. And she said, nobody's feeling like tramping around. I said, okay, I'm not alone. And I said, I'd like to, at the time that I have available, I would like to help. And I'm very glad that I did. Today, I showed up and met a man named Mark there. We worked together. And I met Charlotte, who bandaged my finger, her husband, Dave, Daniel, Eve, and Daniel Pomerantz, too. We're all working on the chargers, unpacking and repacking, and many other duties, clothing and other supplies and lights and so forth that the soldiers need. And it was, I just want to say what a great experience that was. It seemed to be an immediate bonding. I hope my new friends felt that way. I certainly did with them. And Andy, I met a week ago, and immediately we all knew we were here for the same reason. And so I will say that this means so much to me to be in Israel when at this time. And when I heard what happened on the 7th, it just, like a lot of people said, just kind of sit on the couch, you stand up and say, I have to go. And everybody I've met here through Sorrel and through the other opportunities has felt the very same way. We had a madrika that was kind enough to take us to the Supernova Festival site. Difficult, but it makes you realize how horrible, the things that occurred there, how horrible it is for people's lives and disrupting their lives for the rest of their lives. And the thought occurred to me: how do you put something like that back together? What do you do with that? And there are, in the future, if there are kibbutz or other areas where volunteers can be used. And I know I'm getting a little old, but I thought about that as we were riding the bus and hearing about what happened there. And that and other volunteer opportunities, I think it's exciting to hear about ways, especially addressing the issues and all the fallout calamities from October 7th would be a great opportunity for me, and I know for many others. But thanks to all of you. Thank you, Pam, for all you've done so much. And I want to say to Julia and Steve, Ilana, too, for producing the virtual tours and the VFI Educates. It was a real lifeline to me throughout COVID and the years that I couldn't be here. So thank all of you very much, and hope we'll be volunteering in new and different ways in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. And Rodney was talking about, it wasn't not the madricha, the madrich, Yuval, and some of you might have had Yuval through the years, and Yuval was one of the best madrichim we've ever had. And Yuval lives in Switzerland right now. He came back he didn't have to come back to do Miluim duty. He came back, and he's been back for a couple months now, taking off of work, because he's in Israel when they do Miluim duty, reserve duty, and they get called up, they get compensation from their employers. but Yuval came from Switzerland. Switzerland isn't going to give him any compensation for coming to Israel and being in the war. And Yuval took a couple months, and he's back doing his reserve duty. And he's a great madrich now, just as he was a great madrich years and years ago. So thank you. Did you want something else, Andy? Did you
No, well, it's all about the soldiers. It's all about the soldiers. And we've been fortunate to see a few of them coming in to the Hamal. And it's very emotional. And, these are like my kids. And believe me, they really appreciated all the donations that people make, toothbrushes, toothpastes, everything that we give them, they really appreciate. And it's great work that Pamela and everybody's doing down there, and all the volunteers. These farmers have really been hit hard, and I'm glad that many, especially young people, are coming back to work on the farms. And that's really how Sarel and VFI started, and that's what General DeViti wanted. So it's interesting how things have come around, and we're back to doing agriculture, which is very important in this country. So thank you, everybody at VFI, for hanging in there. It's been very trying times the last couple months, but it's highly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Let's go to Sue. Sue is here. You can tell when you were here, Sue, from Arizona, and you can tell what you did. Sue, I'll start out by telling you that Sue brought 600 and something chapsticks to me, because we had no chapsticks for some reason in Israel. Lip balm, chapstick, whatever you want to call it. It costs, it's ridiculous how much it costs for something you can buy in the States for, very low price. So Sue brought me 650 or something like that chapsticks, and she came and she arrived at her hotel, and she came and met me in my house, and with this huge bag and bags of chapsticks. And when you get 650 of them, they weigh a lot. So that's how Sue started out coming. Go on, Sue.
And a lot of cash.
Yes, and a lot.
3 bags of cash too.
Yes. Go on, Sue.
Okay, so I got to Israel December 1st, and I did 2 weeks at Matzrop, the medical supply base. It was very different from all of my other times before, because there's a lot more going on with the soldiers there, and and they're working late, and I've never had meat for dinner before there, but that's because people need to eat and stay strong, because they're doing all this work all day long. And it was so moving to be there during this time. The sense of urgency was, you could just feel it. And especially when the Majihot would say, drop everything, we need to get on the bus and go to the other side of the base and help make those ceramic vests. And then you see the truck standing there waiting for all of us to finish making the vests so that they get sent out to the troops. It was an incredible experience. We even wrote on, Andy, you might have done that. We were writing on some of the vests, wishing our troops good luck and being safe. And that was really an incredible experience. I also agree with Andy, being at the war room. My last day I was there when soldiers were coming to pick up their orders. And then when you guys receive your orders, just I feel like the pain in your heart, Pam, when you're like, oh my God, we need 200 thermals, and we need this, and we need that. And, when the boys are freezing, it's just such a feeling to be able to be there to help and contribute. And I also met really interesting people from all over the world and the States that dropped everything. One came for 5 days from Texas, which is really far. And I met fabulous people from Europe, Canary Islands, and Spain, that it's just the passion. Being there with these people at this time is very, very different than any other time. And I'm coming back before the year is out.
Good. Good. Well, Sue's husband is here now. As I said, he just arrived today. And yes, Sue raised so much money. It was incredible. And she kept on doing it even while she was here. And she brought money to be able to buy all kinds of things that we needed for soldiers. And Sue also brought somebody from Arizona, named Carmen, Carmen had never been in Israel before, right?
Never. It was her first time.
Never been in Israel before. She's not Jewish. She came with Sue. I think maybe she was a little overwhelmed when she walked into our Ben Yehuda distribution center, our center, because here are all these, loud, obnoxious Jews in there, but Carmen just fit right in and participated and loved everything. And she loved doing the program. She loved doing the Army program, and she loved seeing what she was seeing, and and helping as much as she could. So thank you for bringing Carmen, and thank you for all your help when you were here. So it was really unbelievable. So
it felt good to give.
Good. What about, okay, Rochelle. Let's go to Rochelle. Rochelle became famous because Rochelle, if many of you know Rochelle just from either from Sarel from years and years ago, because Rochelle is 4 generations of people who have done Sarel. And Rochelle came and did the program, and she also came to our warehouse, and she also donated money to us and also to Ben Goldstein's, she and her friends, to Ben Goldstein, who many of you know, who supplies a lot of the tactical equipment to soldiers. And when Rochelle was at Hatzerim base, I-24 went and interviewed people, went to the base and saw what was going on, and Rochelle was interviewed, and she became very famous. And you can tell why you became famous, Rochelle.
Well, this was my 18th Sorel, and like Pam says, we're a multi-generational family. But this was very different. And the reason that I have to go back all the time now is because it looks like from the outside, especially if you're in Tel Aviv, that life is normal. People are on the beach, people are walking in the streets, they're eating in restaurants, they're walking with their kids. Everything looks normal, except that that behind every single person there is a hole, is an emotional hole that I'm also feeling. Unlike here, where people are going about their business and it's just what you're looking at. They don't have the hole in their emotions that I do. And even when you don't see it, you know that it's there in Israel. I first went to Matzrap, which is the base that I love to go with. And I did meet up with Peggy, who I had been working with for many, many years. And she's still there, except that now she doesn't work there. She's volunteering like I am. The second part, I was at the base where we were putting together snack packs for the soldiers. And I happened to be working with someone next to me from Spain, and she was watching me, and she noticed my manicure. And I explained to her my manicure. I said, this is for the UN, and this one is for the Red Cross. And she said, hey, come here, you got to see this. So I showed it to some of the other people, and everybody thought it was very funny. But a couple of days later, I-24 was there doing a thing on Sorel, and my friend, my agent, ran over to the woman from I-24. She's got to see this. So I showed her my thing, and she calls the camera guy over, and she told him, you got to take a picture of this. And I said, well, you can't put this on TV, can you? And she says, just don't say anything. Just tell us what it's about. Well, my fury at the Red Cross and the UN just grows every time I hear something else. And I have never been sorry for what I said about them or for the manicure that I have made sure is going to stay on there for the rest of my life. Anyway, the whole thing, I was on TV and she said they were going to show it. The whole thing is over. And I said to this woman, I said, you're some agent. I did this whole TV thing and I didn't have on any lipstick. And obviously it didn't make any difference. When I got home, I got a phone call from I-24. They wanted to interview me on Zoom. And that was my second time that this thing happened. And my daughter called me up and she says, Ma, what have you done? You've gone viral. And I said to her, what does that mean? I have no idea what it means. I've heard of it, but I don't know what it means. And she says, it means that thousands of people are looking at what you did. Had no idea until I realized, having heard from this woman who called me, whose grandson is in the Army. She says, every one of the soldiers is talking about you. She says, my grandson just sent me this thing. And she says, oh, I know her. She's in my Hadassah group. And more people were telling me that they saw this. So now I know what going viral is. And then I-24 got in touch with me and said, you know, we've had over 1 million hits on this. Now I got to tell you, the first thing they say, Rochelle Marshall from New York at 82 years old. So the first thing everybody knows is that I'm 82 years old. And that was a problem because Sorel had changed the level of the age limit to 80. And that was not going to stop me. Obviously, they tried, but they didn't. And there is no reason why the cutoff has to be at 80. However, I have to tell you that the notoriety has been unbelievable. The number of people who have seen my interview is just unbelievable. The only thing that I have to say that makes me very happy is that the soldiers loved it. They all saw it. Everyone in the IDF saw it, and they absolutely loved it. It's not very ladylike, I have to admit that, but what I feel about those two organizations goes beyond being ladylike, because what I feel like saying about them is not to be repeated by good company, because I am so furious. It isn't enough that Israel has to fight Hamas, that Israel doesn't have to fight everything else that's going on there, the Hezbollah. Now we find the two organizations that are the hope, were the hope, whose job it is to take care of these people, and what they're doing, supporting Hamas. What chance does Israel have when the UN and the Red Cross are against them? At any rate, that's my claim to fame.
With Rochelle, with people like you, we have plenty of a chance. Don't worry. I have to say that when Rochelle first she applied, And she told all of us on the Thursday Zooms, she said, I applied, but they told me I can't come because I'm over 80 and Rochelle would not give up. She kept on writing to them. She kept on telling them, it's too bad. I'm coming no matter what. I've done Sarel for, a million years since the very beginning, and I'm coming. So you better let me on the base. And that's what Rochelle did. So thank you very, very much, Rochelle.
But one more thing, Pam, could you tell the story about those little black boxes that I saw people putting together in the basement there? I thought that was such a wonderful story.
You mean the chargers?
Yes.
So part of the, this is also what Rodney was talking about. One of the things we're doing in the warehouse, at the beginning, after about 3 weeks of the war, somebody came to us and said, could he use part of our space, because he's this, Israeli young genius, and he invented this little charger thing because friends of his told him that on tanks there's no way of charging the encrypted devices. So he invented this little thing, and he needed space to have an assembly line, which we provided volunteers and at the beginning they were doing it every day for several weeks. Now they just do it usually a couple days a week. And they wound up supplying, just by word of mouth, tank units with these little chargers that go in, sort of like the old cigarette lighter chargers. So they go into the tanks, and then they can plug in their devices. After the Army itself finding out about all these tank units that had these devices, then the Army ordered thousands and thousands and thousands of them from this guy Shaked and his wife Angie. And now that they've done all of that, now they are starting to work on another kind of charger. That's what Rodney started helping on, and Rodney's coming tomorrow to work on them. That are going to be for individual soldiers, not for the tanks, but for individual soldiers. So yes, that's another thing that's being done in our center. So thank you, Rochelle. I want to also talk about Daniel Pomerantz, who is not on tonight because he had another meeting, but many of you have seen him on the Zooms, on the Thursday night Zooms, or you've seen him on I-24. He used to be the CEO of Honest Reporting. Now he's he started another organization called Reality Check. I'm going to put the website on the chat, and you should look at it because Daniel is very, very active in not just talking about anti-Semitism and everything going on around the world, but also on Israel Hasbara, Israel PR. And he's on I-24 a lot. He's on a lot of different news stations. So if you don't know him, look at his website and join his Facebook thing or website thing, whatever, and you'll get all of his emails and his newsletters because he's very worthwhile following. So, okay. Who else is here? Did Linda Siegel come on? I didn't see her. Anybody see? Is there anybody else that, let's see, is Ken on? Ken Schneider, did you get on? Ken was going to come. Ken's been here Ken was here for several weeks, and now he's back in the States.
I don't see him.
I don't see Ken. He did have an appointment. He was going to be home a little later.
I don't see him yet.
I know Doug Fenn was I see Doug is here. Doug was supposed to come, and he didn't make it because he didn't realize that you can only fly into Israel on El Al Airlines, unfortunately. Oh, I see Carmen. Carmen, you're there. Carmen, do you want to say a few words? Unmute yourself. Carmen is the person who came with Sue for the first time. Oh, there you are.
Myself. There you go.
Okay.
I'm unmuted. Yeah, first of all, I do have to sing the praises of Sue Adato. She put up with me for a week, and that was pretty amazing. And she really helped me a lot. I had back surgery like a month and a half before, so I wasn't as mobile as everybody else, but she pushed me and it was great. And we're still in contact, and she's my new best friend, but whether or not she wants to be, that's her choice, but she is. I'm Cuban. I came as a refugee in 1962, and my father was at that time, well, he was assassinated in 1961. He was appointed as Attorney General by Castro. Anyway, I've experienced war, and when I saw what happened on October 7th, I just started crying. Mindy Franklin called my husband, and I grabbed the phone and I said, I'm going to Israel. And that was that. And it was an incredible experience. What was really interesting is that, you know, I'm Catholic, but I'm in the process of converting. My father's family, Amador, were Sephardic Jews, but there were a lot of non-Jews in our group, from Spain and France, and from Colombia, and they were just amazing workers. So, you know, as sad as everything is with the United Nations and the Red Cross, there are just wonderful people all over the world that get it and that are helping. Pam, since, you know, Sue really described what we did, can I just make a comment about something else that I think is important? So my husband is the superintendent of public instruction in Arizona. And there was a bill passed by the legislature regarding the curriculum of Arizona, which included teaching what happened to the Jews in World War II. And most of the schools were not teaching it, and now he's insisting on doing that. So I think that what we can do in our, you know, in the United States, those that are here today, is, you know, talk to the superintendent of public instruction for your state and make sure that they're teaching the curriculum, the right curriculum about the Holocaust and not something else. And the other thing that was really interesting, I just read an article in Commentary. It's a wonderful magazine, and it talks about the Jewish people restraining themselves versus other people that are being, I don't know, discriminated against, and how they react as they throw rocks at, you know, store windows and that type of thing. And that's a great thing about the Jewish people, and that is that they're, well, first of all, they're very smart, but they restrain themselves and they, you know, they use their voice to complain. But it hurts me that those other folks, you know, get away with throwing things, and then we're criticized because we're criticized. I'm not Jewish yet, and the Jewish people are criticized for, you know, just voicing their opinion. And I don't know, it's just really horrendous. Anyway, my husband lost 10 pounds while I was gone, even though I made him food and put it in the refrigerator. And he said, "You're not going back, are you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going back in the summer if I'm allowed to." Not by him, because he doesn't boss me around. I'm 6'6", just, you know, and I'm short, or so he says. But anyway, so I hope that, you know, Mindy Franklin can help me get back there, and I hope that Susie Q goes with me, because I can't do it without her. That's it.
Oh, thank you, Carmen. And Carmen, about the Holocaust studies in the curriculum, that's amazing. And I would like you to be in touch with Dan Pomerantz and tell him what's going on. He's one of his big thing is Holocaust education, and
Okay.
so write to him, look up on the website and write to him and tell him what, you know, what's going on in Arizona and what your husband has done.
Okay.
That's really important. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Carmen, I'll help you make you an introduction to Dan.
Thank you,
Yes.
Susie Q. I'll see you Monday at lunch. Don't forget.
Thank you, Carmen. And hope everything was okay in the hospital with your husband today. Sue told everybody when you're in Carmen, when you're in this group, everybody knows everything about everybody. So
well, that's
welcome.
just like Cubans. Cubans are the Jews of the Caribbean. So I hope to become part of the clan, the real clan.
I'd like to have Howie Michelle talk now. Howie, I just realized that Howie's on. Howie, are you still there? Yes. Howie, can you turn on your microphone?
Yes.
And your picture? Like, What
Okay.
about a real picture of you? And I mean, real of you.
Sure. Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Howie has been a volunteer for many, many, many years. I met him when he and his wife first came to Sarel, and then Howie made Aliyah, and one of his sons was already here with his family. And then Howie is like the dream of every person who makes Aliyah, is like, he's our dream, because now all of Howie's family, his other 3 sons, and all their family live here. And he's got 4 children here and 22 grandchildren now.
22.
22 grandchildren. So Howie's my idol. So anyway, this is Howie, everyone.
Thank you, Pam. I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words. I did my first Sarel in 1987. So I've been involved for quite some time, and we've seen the evolution of Sarel over many, many years. The way it works now for people like me, as Olim here in Israel, we came up with an idea back during the COVID period when people were not able to fly in from overseas, and we asked if we could help on the bases by commuting from the towns that we live in Israel to a base nearby that would need our help. I live in Modi'in. It's a very central city, midway between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. And there happen to be 3 or 4 bases that are very close for commuting purposes. So the model is that we do day work as opposed to the traditional way of doing Sarel, where you are on base, living in the barracks, in uniform, committing to a week or up to 3 weeks at a time, which is what I used to do when I lived in America. But I've been in Israel now for 15 years, and I was able to switch over and continue to do that in normal times. But once COVID came, things really got shaken up. We couldn't sleep on the bases so easily, and we just started commuting. And we worked out developing groups of volunteers in each town that want to help Sarel. And we've taken on a huge number of Olim. And over the 4 months of the war so far, we've had people commuting maybe 3 days a week. And we've gone to bases where we are either doing Krav Manot, the food rations for the soldiers, which are badly needed, or we're doing Tziyud Rifui, the medical supplies, or we're doing combat gear of all sorts, and even things like sleeping bags. I mean, I don't want to even tell you, I have 3 of my immediate family members who are currently active duty, 1 in Jenin, 1 in Gaza, 1 on the Lebanon border. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard about soldiers that are sleeping in the dirt or sleeping on rocks. So I've worked on bases now where we've done thousands of checks and preparations of sleeping bags. A lot of them were used, I think, I hate to say this, but I think they were used in the Yom Kippur War. They're digging up thousands of sleeping bags that were in all kinds of storage facilities. They're washing and drying them. We're checking them to make sure that they can close with the zipper properly, and that the stuffing isn't falling out. And we're wrapping them up with these machines that put straps on them, and then we get them to the soldiers in vast numbers. I was on a base recently where we had to do food rations. I think that day we prepared, with the group of volunteers that came from my town, we prepared 16,000 boxes or meals for 16,000 soldiers. So it would have been 4,000 boxes in one day. That's the kind of crazy, wild stuff that's going on right now. Obviously, it's very emotional and very meaningful. The idea that the things that we're doing, I mean, I see them taking what we're doing and loading them onto tractor trailers and flatbed trucks and going straight to the combat zones to bring literally food to the soldiers or the gear that they need. And I also separately On my off days from going to Sarel, I work with an organization called Yashar L'Chayal, which is very much like the organization that Pamela started. It's been around quite a bit longer. It predated the war, but we have a warehouse on the north side of Modi'in, and they obtain orders from the different plugot, from different military units, asking. Right now it's wintertime here, so we have guys up in the snow in the Hermon. We have guys freezing down in the desert. So what are they doing? They're asking for fleeces, neck warmers, beanies, the wool beanies, warm socks, every kind of undergarment, thermal underwear. And this organization has been fortunate to get funding from the United States mostly. And we're fulfilling orders. Yesterday, I was in the warehouse, and we literally have soldiers arriving straight from Gaza. They give them vehicles to come to this warehouse in Modi'in, and we're loading specific orders for specific units. It could also be first aid kits, medications of different sorts, headlamps, which they need for the patrolling that they're doing in the dark, safety goggles, jackknives, Swiss Army knives. You can't imagine the needs that have come up and the requests that have come up. This organization tries very hard to fulfill those requests. And we're supplementing what the Army is doing, because the Army has never pulled up 350,000 soldiers all at once and put them onto the front lines in the wintertime. So they're really not equipped well enough to take care of our guys. And so thank God that there are organizations like Hamal Ben Yehuda 86 and Yashar L'Chayal to supplement what the Army is doing. I'm seeing it from both sides, the private volunteer organizations and also the IDF's efforts as well. And somehow or other, we're working together and everybody is unified. I mean, they've done studies that indicate that 50% of Israeli adult citizens are volunteering in some capacity right now. I think it was 50% of the population is in some form of volunteer capacity right now. And I'm seeing it because I see it right here in my neighborhood. All my friends, everybody's doing something. And then when I really have nothing going on, if I do have a free day, I do agricultural work. We live right next to the Ayalon Valley. My daughter lives on a yeshuv 10 minutes away across the valley. I've gone there. I've been picking raspberries. I mean, we're doing all, avocados, whatever needs to be picked and boxed and, to save the livelihoods of our farmers. It's yet another thing that we're trying to do to help. So that's a little bit of a summary of what I've been up to for 4 months.
Thank you, Howie. And I must tell you, Howie showed us when he was at our place the other day, he showed us pictures of the warehouse where he works, the distribution center he works. And this is a big, fancy distribution center with like these big cages that you can put things in, and it's just so fancy. And all of us just sat there saying, wow, because ours is this little place. Those of you who have been in ours, it's just a little thing. I mean, it's a big room in the synagogue, in the bottom of the synagogue, but it's it's a small place compared to Howie's.
But from my perspective, when I came for the first time to see what you're doing, I said, okay, it's a mini version of where I'm at, but I'm working for an organization that's been in existence for multiple years prior to the war, that has been trying to do things to help the soldiers, and they just shifted gears and made it very much war oriented. But it's actually a very beautiful thing to see grassroots organizations springing up everywhere. I just signed up for yet another thing right in the neighborhood next to mine here in Modi'in. They just do boots, combat boots for soldiers. So far, they've shipped 30,000 pairs of boots. They're also getting donations from overseas, shipments from overseas. They're bringing it in to a kindergarten here in the next neighborhood, where they've actually given the kindergarten over to this volunteer effort just to be able to fulfill the requests, which are huge, for better boots for the guys who are mucking around in the mud right now or in the snow. So
that's what we use. That's what we use our kindergarten. That's what we use our kindergartners.
Yeah, the grassroots efforts are incredible. It's the most patriotic, most beautiful thing you've ever seen in your life. I've never experienced the amount of unity and effort that I've seen in this short period since I've been living in Israel 15 years.
Right. Thank you, Howie. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
יישר כוח.
Is Linda on? I know she wanted to talk. Linda, anyone? Okay.
I didn't see her. I didn't see her.
Is there anybody else who has been here recently and has been volunteering in different things that I missed who would like to talk?
Yeah, please raise your hand via.
Okay, there's Ken. Okay, Ken got on. Good.
Ken's here.
All right, Ken.
Trying
Do
to
you see
find him.
Ken? Okay, it says iPhone 2. He's in a car.
Oh.
Unmute yourself, Ken.
Oh, there he is. Ken,
Okay, there you go.
can you
Unmute. No.
Can't hear you. Here,
Can you
let me-
unmute?
We can only see you.
Hold on. Let me see if I can send him a link to here. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Let's try that.
There.
How's
Okay.
that?
Perfect.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Good? Okay. I'm driving
All right,
along.
this
I
is-
apologize, but
Okay, this is Ken, who is from Vermont, who's also done Sorrel many, many, many times through VFI. And he was here and he did a variety of things also. So
Please
go,
watch
Ken.
the road. Please watch the road.
yep, I am. I got a red light. Good. Okay. So first of all, I'm from Rhode Island. Come on.
I'm
So-
sorry. Okay. He's in the ice
same
cream
part of the
business.
country, but a little
He was
different.
in the ice
Yes.
cream business. Yes.
I was in the ice cream business. Now I'm retired. And I came to Israel to do 3 weeks on Sorel at the beginning of January. And I knew it was going to be a different year because usually I do Sorel. And then on my time off, I'm a tourist. And then I go back to Sorel. And I was really torn when I first got there about my time and what I was going to do with my time. And when I finally got it through my head, why I was a little, stressed, I realized that I really did not care about being a tourist this year. My main goal was just to do whatever I could do for the 3.5 weeks that I was in Israel. And so on my time off from Sorel, I went over to, Pam's place over at 86 Ben Yehuda, which was very interesting. It was great to see. Got to see a few soldiers come in, got to chit chat with them, ask them about their guns. I learned that there's the soldiers that are carrying guns that are trained in shooting down drones. So, that was new for me, and it was kind of exciting. I got to see them building the charges that they were putting. I don't know if anybody knows, if you've talked about that, Pam, very much. Putting together charges for the soldiers while they're in the tanks, and then they morphed into putting charges together that the soldiers can hold, on their bodies themselves. So that was cool. I thought that was a great way to do some volunteering. I really, really did enjoy being there, and I thank you, Pam, for inviting me. I did bring a second suitcase full of various items that Pam told me that she needed, and there's two people one from Rhode Island, one from Massachusetts that I know are coming. The guy from Massachusetts already bought a second suitcase, so at least a couple of weeks before he's going, I'll be in touch with you, Pam, to see what the latest needs are. And that's how I left it with him. And I'm meeting with a guy tonight, and I'm going to try to convince him to bring a second suitcase, which we'll talk about that too. So, and besides being at Pam's, I went 3 times down to the farms, and I went with an organization, Leket, and they pick you up in Tel Aviv at 6 a.m, and they don't really commit to where they're going. And it turns out my 3 times I was on cherry tomato farms, 2 of the times, making new strings for the next crop of tomatoes. And then the 3rd time I actually picked the cherry tomatoes. And believe me, I got a new respect for people that work on farms. I wouldn't have thought that picking cherry tomatoes was such a physical job, but it is. I mean, if you want to do a good job, you have to really dig inside these plants and get all the red ones. And yeah, it was pretty intense. It was pretty sad to hear, the stories about the farmers that, their help just boogied on them after the war started. And, 2/3 to 3/4 of their crop is just going to rot. So there's a lot of financial problems going on in Israel, and anybody that's going to be going, I applaud you. I was there like 3.5 weeks, and if I wasn't married and had responsibilities, I would have stayed. And I usually just go once a year. This was my 17th time doing Sorel, and I'm gonna negotiate with my wife to go back, in November. And it's unfortunately, I think things are still going to be pretty bad in Israel at that time. And I'm going to do what I can do. And overall, so I was on the base Matzrop, working with medical supplies that I was on many times. And in past years, it used to be, well, we're putting these medical supplies together and let's hope that they never have to use them. And then this year was, we were seeing stuff coming back from Gaza, back from the north, and, half the trunks were empty. They were dirty, they were beat up, and we were cleaning them up and getting all the dust off them and filling them and sending them back out. So it was a very, very emotional trip for me this year. Just hearing about the soldiers, that were dying literally on a daily basis it's pretty horrible. So can you all hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. We hear
Oh,
you.
good,
We hear you
good.
fine, Ken.
I'm just blabbing along, and
Heard everything.
I wanted to make sure somebody was on
That's
the other end.
We heard you. We heard
Okay.
everything you said.
Oh,
Ken,
good.
thank you
Okay.
thank you so much. And really, he brought that extra suitcase that he brought for us. It was so heavy. And he said, I went and met him at the hotel, and it was another terrible day. I think it was raining that day too. And
Yes.
and he said, do you want me to help you to take it back to your house? Because I couldn't take it to the warehouse because we were closed. And I think it was a Saturday night I came over and got it or something. And I said, no, it's okay, I can take it, because Ken was tired and, I didn't want him to have to drag it to my house. Well, I'm telling you, it was the heaviest thing I ever took. It's not that many blocks away, but it was heavy. But we had a good time. We had a good time opening it the next day.
That's great. That's great. It's like Hanukkah all year, right?
Oh, and I have to tell you, Ken is called, and he's called on some soldiers' bases in some soldiers' unit. He's called Compression Ken, because a tank unit commander told us, he asked when he was in our Hamal one day, and he said, do you have any compression socks? We said, we have a million regular Army socks, but we don't have compression socks. He said, because the tank drivers, when they're sitting in the tanks all day, they really need compression socks. So Ken was coming soon. He brought me, 30 pairs of compression socks, and we supplied that unit with compression socks, and they made a little video thanking Compression Ken for the socks. So he is known as Compression Ken.
Yes,
So,
I'm famous in Gaza.
right.
For a good reason. Yes.
So thank you very much, Ken.
Yes.
Is there anybody else that I missed?
Pamela, I just want to say thank you so much for, putting it all together. And thank you all for your volunteering job. I have to quit. So it's
Julia, I wanted you to talk now, Julia.
Impossible because it's 10 Israeli time.
How
We
about
are
5 minutes. 5 minutes, Julia.
I can do it next week. I can truly, because but you have other speakers and it's more important. And
No, but there's nobody else. There's nobody else.
nobody else? Sure,
No,
positive?
if someone else wants to talk, they'll talk after you. Talk for 5 minutes.
Okay, I will. So I would love to share the few photos I have. So if somebody can make a co-host so I can share my screen.
Steve, can you do it? It won't let me.
You can share.
Can somebody make me, please?
You should be able to do it. I made
Yeah.
multiple participants.
What? To share my screen?
Try to share it, Julia. You should
Go
be
ahead,
able.
Julia. Yeah,
Okay,
you can
okay.
share.
Okay, I'm not used to it. Okay, great. Can you see?
Yes.
Can you see it? Israel is a nation. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So, all right. So that's obviously the topic. And again, I'm so overwhelmed by everything you just said. You know, I was sitting here and it's like, it's incredible. People are taking their time and effort and money and everything and coming here. I mean, normally people escape when there is a war, but there are people coming in while there is a war. And this is like, it doesn't make any sense, and it does make a perfect sense, and just incredible. So one of the few things I was participating in is something we call a dress-up operation, which was launched by Brothers in Arms, and this is supplying jackets, soft shells to soldiers. And what you see here is a volunteer on the left and a young soldier on the right, being sort of undressed for a little while, and then he will put the jacket. We supplied about 50,000 jackets to soldiers back north and south and West Bank and all over the place as it is getting cold. So this is the dress-up operation. And then, well, so much was already said about volunteering in agriculture, so I will not add more to it. This specific photo was taken during pickup of pecan nuts. Okay, you just sit on the ground and pick up the nuts. Okay, and this is something which is more unique, I would say. This is kibbutz Gvulot. Kibbutz Gvulot is a beautiful little, typical farming kibbutz, which is located, relatively far away from Gaza Strip. I mean, relatively far away is approximately 8 miles from the fence, from the security fence. And therefore, it was not evacuated to begin with, but it does belong to a district council, which is called Eshkol, which is the same district council which has Nir Am and Nir Oz and Be'eri and some of the other communities which were really badly hurt. And so the other communities were evacuated while Kibbutz Gvulot was not evacuated, but they had no school, they had no buses, they had no supermarket, they had no clinic, they had nothing because the entire district council was evacuated. So eventually they were evacuated to Eilat as well. And now they decided to come back. So this is the very first community among those who were evacuated after October 7th, which is coming back to their place, to their houses, restore, like trying to make life, be as it was. So this is what it looks like. And me and other volunteers and a large group of JNF volunteers, primarily from Canada and some from the United States. They came for a few days. I mean, they were coming for a few hours and go to other things. And they were just cleaning and weeding and planting and just making this place to look better. Oh, I forgot to share my sound. Wait, oh, that's important. Wait a sec. I will be sharing the sound because there is a little video. Okay, so among other things we were doing there was painting, and among other things to paint was a future school. I mean, it used to be a kindergarten and a club, but it was not so much used any longer. So it was decided to make it a school because the district school, which is much closer to the Gaza Strip, is not yet functioning. So they have a temporary school in Kibbutz Gvulot for the kids of Kibbutz Gvulot and a few other communities, which some of their people came back. Anyway, so I met these two wonderful ladies from United States, and they were so kind not just to paint and to talk to me, but also let me do a little video. So this is the one I want to share with you now. Please let me know if you hear them. Okay, they will introduce themselves.
Here we go. My name is Ann Whiteside from Bethesda, Maryland. Hello.
I'm Jackie Haynes. I'm from Potomac, Maryland. And we are here with the JNF volunteer mission. And it is absolutely wonderful to be here, to feel like we're contributing something to the country we love at a time when they need our help.
And, you know, some of you may have concerns about the environment here, and I assure you we are well protected. We feel very safe, and we're working in various ways. We're working in agriculture. Yesterday, Jackie and I picked oranges for about 4.5 hours.
And you survived it.
And we survived it.
Our group, our whole group picked 16 tons of oranges yesterday.
And what you need to understand is when the Thai workers ran back to their homes, we're filling in for that. Otherwise, the crops would go for waste. And we're helping the farmers in that way and the economy in that way. Today, we're in a wonderful kibbutz Gvulot, and we're painting for the children who will come back to this beautiful classroom and other classrooms.
And in addition, we've had several opportunities to interact with soldiers who are in and out of Gaza. Some informally. We have some formal programs to interact with them. We're also going to a hospital. That's in tomorrow's program. Going to a hospital for rehabilitation for those who have been injured. And it's just a very, very satisfying program. It's a very interesting group of people who came, various ages, from pretty young people to pretty old people.
I think what Jackie just said, the giving back at this particular time, I can't even explain it yet. I need to process it, but it is so good for the soul, so good for the heart. I hope many of you can come and experience what we've experienced for this week.
Thank you very, very much.
Okay, well, that speaks for itself. I mean, you know, giving is receiving, and you know that better than anybody else. And another thing which I was doing last week together with my husband, who took a day off from work, is helping to resettle Kibbutz Nirim. Kibbutz Nirim is a community which was badly affected by the war. They are located just a bit over a mile from Gaza Strip. There's no chance they're coming back anywhere sooner. I mean, not just because of the security reasons, but more of psychological reasons. So they were evacuated to Eilat, and then they moved to the temporary homes, temporary hotels and homes in Beersheba. And now it was decided that they will move to Beersheba as their temporary permanent home, meaning that the entire community of Kibbutz Nirim signed a contract with a constructing company in Beersheba. So they are renting apartments for 5 years from now. I mean, they may leave earlier, but they will stay there at least for a year because kids need to go to school, and now they finished their school year. So we're talking about at least a year. But one of the members of the kibbutz I've talking to said, like, well, I'm not sure we'll ever be back, and not before 5 years from now. And you know, it's so difficult. I mean, it's so difficult whatever happened to them. And then they moved from, you see this central photo is was taken in Kibbutz Nirim before October 7th. And then you see on the right and on the left, this is the construction site. You know, it's a brand new neighborhood being built in Beersheba, and it's it's so difficult to move from this to this, but they have no choice. And one of the things which they really needed help with is assembling IKEA furniture. I don't know if you ever purchase things in IKEA, but you get relatively cheap and very convenient. And I mean, they have great stuff, but you get boxes. Like we're talking about 85 or so families, and they have all their furniture brand new purchased from IKEA, and all of it comes in boxes, and then it must be assembled. So we were working there, like dozens of people, just assembling IKEA furniture for them, and then delivering utensils and electrical stuff to their homes. So these are two, again, different and very important, I believe, things I was doing, and some controversial volunteering, which also it's a major, big thing which is going on in Israel. It's not typical volunteering; it's a little bit more political. It's much more political, but that's a big issue now. So the demonstrations here, you can see the two. Okay, this is one typical statement. It is either Netanyahu survival or the survival of the hostages. And here you see the Netanyahu sacrifices hostages and fighters on the altar of his survival. So it's a it's getting bigger and bigger. But there is light in the end of the dark tunnel, at least I hope so. And when things get back to normal, we will not just volunteer, but also hike. And sometimes we hike even now. So thank you for
Julia, that was amazing. And Steve and Alana, I think that Julia just put together the future of VFI. I mean, that was the future of VFI. Who needs
Looks that way.
anything
Thanks,
else?
Julia.
Julia, that was amazing, right,
Good
Steve?
snapshot.
I mean, that's
Oh,
it.
yeah, that's it. We have to volunteer and hike and hope.
But that's it.
That's exactly. I mean, yeah, and we look forward to be over. Guys, thank you so much. It really got to go.
Thank you for doing it, Julia. I'm sorry it was so late for you.
Pamela, thank you for doing it. Thank you for assembling all these people. Thank you for hosting them. And I sent you a WhatsApp question regarding your Hamas.
We're open till three tomorrow, till 3 o'clock on Fridays.
Okay. Hey, it was great. It actually brings hope. It does bring light in the end of the tunnel.
A great picture. That last one's a great picture.
Again, it's a friend of mine. We do hike from time to time because you have to keep sane. Thank you so much for everything, and thank you, Steve. Thank you, Lana and Pam and Howie and Rochelle and Carmen. And so. Okay, Am Israel Chai, VFI Chai, as Harry just wrote. Thank you so much, and see you next week.
Okay, thanks, Julia.
Bye-bye.
So is there anybody else? Okay, now that Julia had to go, is there anybody else that I did miss? Anybody else that signed in? Or anybody that has a question or something?
Pam?
Yeah, who is it?
Alan.
Ellen. Yeah. Hi.
Do you still need compression stockings?
Well, I suppose. I don't know. We haven't talked to any other tank commanders because
I can get some with zippers on them, which are easier to take on and off.
I'm sure there are thousands and thousands of tank drivers.
Do you have my email? If not, I'll give it to you. And let me know, because I probably can get out like another 30 pairs.
Okay, give it to me.
ACE.
Yep.
ALKARD.com.
Wait, AL what?
KARD.
Okay, ACELcard.com.
Yeah. Yeah, because if they do, I'll pick them up. I'll ship them over to you even.
That's not an email address.
ACE at.
Oh, at. Okay.
alcard.com.
got it. Okay, good. Okay.
So I don't mind doing that. I've done it with you a couple times also.
Right. Okay. I'll write to you later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Alana, did you see any other questions?
I'm looking. Things like people have been great at answering other people's questions.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
Well, I thank everybody for being on. I hope it was informative to a lot of you. I mean, I know that a lot of you have been on all the Zooms and you heard about all the things going on here and everything with different volunteer things, but I hope it was kind of interesting and fun to see other people actually talking about what they did.
I do see that Barry Stein, although I don't know if Carol and Barry are still on, I don't think they are, asking where volunteers stay when they would do farm work.
Oh, okay. Well, I can answer that. Most farms do not have accommodations for them. There are a couple of them that are advertised. I know that someone put on there, and I've talked about it many times too, the Sword of Iron Facebook site. And if you look up Sword of Iron and you look up and then you focus in on accommodations, then you'll see some that might, but it's very, very few. I mean, maybe one or two. So the chances of finding an accommodation are pretty slight. But as Howie said, if you do the farming through Leket, they pick you up. Also, the Tel Aviv International Synagogue in Tel Aviv, they have a whole farming program, and 2 or 3 times a week they take people down to farms. They have buses that go from the synagogue, which is on Frischman, around the corner from where I'm working, and so that's the way most of the farming sites are done. So no accommodations, and unfortunately, that's the problem with most of these volunteer opportunities, is that there is no accommodation. So you have to be prepared to come and spend money at hotels or hostels or something like that. But you know what? If you get people together and you share rooms, it's no different than being on an army base. So
Pamela's has been a great, spontaneous, homegrown, real-time, on the ground, very inspiring series of adventures. And I noticed that every single one of your presenters had a certain glisten in their eye, a gleam, having done something positive, having felt real good about it, and everybody else agrees on the broadcast today. This has been a terrific show. Thank you for initiative of assembling these folks.
Oh, Betty, you have a question?
Yeah. Who is this Dr. J who advertises on to get logistics people on the base?
Yeah, we talked about that last night on that other meeting. We never found out. Did anyone? Arlene? Nobody ever found out who it was.
Mindy said he's with like Zionists of America or something, that group. I mean, it's a pretty common group. And he it's Harutna, if I'm saying it right, Heratnu.
Right,
And it's some Zionist organization, and he has a special link. I mean, he's speaking to Karen, and she allows him to give her 25 applications a month. So he is feeding her 25 applications a month.
So it's kind of like a split off group.
Yes. But just 25. You remember Lori McKeenan from Florida, or she's the one that contacted him and got all the scoop.
Wow.
Good idea.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? As you hear, some of you who might be thinking about coming to Israel and are worried about it, as you hear from all these people, really, there's nothing to be worried about. Although I have to say, 2 weeks ago, when I went down to Eilat for a big music festival, Steve said to me, "Well, you better be careful. You know what happens at music festivals," which obviously hadn't even been in my mind. And that's how he sent me off for this music festival. I told him that this was just a bunch of old people and we were inside hotels. So.
Right.
No, but it's really, I mean, it's very, very safe. People, take heed when there are sirens. You go into shelters when there are sirens. If you pay attention to what they tell you about staying inside your shelter for 10 minutes after the rocket, then you're going to be okay. So, and all of these sites, all of these volunteer opportunities are really careful about where they're taking you and what they're doing with you.
All right, at this point, I'm going to stop the recording and we'll move on to the schmooze session. It'll be seamless. You folks.
Now, while the war with Hamas may have scared most tourists away from Israel, it has attracted here a stream of foreign volunteers, many of them, of course, Jewish, but not all of them, who have come here to pitch in and help in this challenging time for the country. Now, one of those was 82-year-old New Yorker Rochelle Marshall, who came to Israel as part of the Sarel Volunteers program. Now, she was interviewed last week for I-24 News by our correspondent Emily Francis. And at one point, she gave her unvarnished, I would say, New Yorker-style view on a couple of international organizations that have been critical of Israel. A clip that has since gone viral in a big way on social media. Let's take a look at that.
They thought I was too old to come here this year. And let me tell you, they made a mistake thinking that. This one is for the Red Cross, and this one is for the UN, and they deserve it.
Well, Rochelle Marshall is back in New York City, but she joins us from there now. Rochelle, thank you so much for both coming to Israel and, of course, making that. First of all, I want to ask you the reactions you've got from that clip, because I'm seeing it all over social media and Instagram and Twitter. What kind of reactions have you been getting there?
Well, so far it's all positive, which means that I'm in a good crowd and that I have the right friends, because everything I've gotten so far has been positive and supportive. I'm in a congregation that's very pro-Israel, and although there is anti-Semitism around me, I have Israeli flags in my front yard, and some of my neighbors do also, and so far, so good. I know that around me, there's plenty of terrible things happening.
Right.
Israel is very important to me. And I think that the UN and that the Red Cross have behaved abominably. They could have stopped this in the beginning, and they chose not to.
Right. Let me ask you, you say in that clip, who said you were too old? People at Sarel, or some of your friends or your family? Who was discouraging you because you clearly proved them wrong?
None of my friends or family would dare to tell me I'm too old. But Sarel at some point made the decision that 80 would be the cutoff, and that was something new. They said because of the circumstances, and to keep me away from Israel at a time that I could do something and that I wanted to be there so badly, I felt was just cruel, because it's almost like when you have a sick friend who's far away and you want to be there to help them, just to do whatever you can. And although what I can do is not very much, I needed to be there. And I'm so glad that I was able to do something.
Right. Well, tell us about how you felt among did you feel that spirit among the volunteers that came here and that were with you there in that particular program?
The volunteers are so dedicated and so caring about Israel. They felt the same way I did. That's one of the reasons why I need to come to Israel so badly, because I'm surrounded by people who are of the same mind as I am in something that's so important to me. All of the people who were there as volunteers were there because they cared deeply about Israel and are very upset about this, what's happening now. But we are surrounded by Israelis who are giving up so much, whose lives are being hurt in every way. And you feel kind of like you don't deserve their thanks, because what they're doing is making sure that there's an Israel for me to come to. And with the way the world is now, it may come to that.
Let me ask you about that, Rochelle. You know, I'm a New Yorker myself, but it's been many decades since I left. But seeing some of those scenes that we see in the streets of New York, some of these demonstrations, these people ripping off the postages of hostages, some of the anti-Semitic acts and invective. I mean, I'm glad you have within yourself a supportive community, but how you feel about, in the bigger picture, of some of what we've seen in the U.S. and even in New York City since October 7th?
Well, even before that, when I saw a Nazi flag being raised in Charlottesville, my heart stopped. And it's just gone downhill from there. Now it's unbelievable when we see the most important universities in our country supporting Hamas. It's just beyond belief. And it frightens me. It frightens me very much to see this in my country, that people have, I don't know, they just don't seem to understand, after what happened with Hamas, that these people can go out with flags supporting Hamas, saying that they're supporting the Palestinians, when it's Hamas that's forcing the Palestinians to be in the front of the firing. It's unbelievable. It just, maybe they just don't know, but I just think it's very frightening, because it seems like Jewish lives just don't matter as much anymore. And when things like that happen, I look to Israel, because that's where it doesn't happen. And that's why it was so important for me and the other volunteers to be there, so that we could be surrounded by people who get it.
All right, Rochelle Marshall, we thank you for joining us here in Israel. We look forward if you come back and maybe come to the studio here, and we'll host you at I-24 News. Rochelle, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. It's an invitation I will take you up on.